Hello friends, welcome to the module 4 of our Node.js training course on my channel Let's Learn. In this module, we will cover the essential topics like what is the promise in Node.js, different states of promises, promise chains, what is the error handling in promise, and what are the different functions of promises like Promise.any, Promise.all, Promise.all.settled, like this. So before moving further, I would like to request to my viewers that if you are new to my channel, then please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get the notification of more such videos. I will add the links of all my videos related with this tutorial in the description section. So now let's start. First, we are going to discuss what is promise in Node.js. A promise is an object that says the operation is running in the background in asynchronous way, and once the operation is completed, then the control will come to the result handler of this promise object. It supports asynchronous, parallel, and non-blocking programming in Node.js. It is advanced version of callback functions. It was introduced in the Node.js to remove the problems and issues that were being faced in the callback functions, as it is capable of running the multiple operations in parallel. Thus it boosts the application performance. It allows you to associate the handlers with an asynchronous action's eventual success value or failure reason. Now let's understand this with a coding example. So for this, I have opened the Visual Studio Code, and here I have already created few files and few functions. So let's see our first promise. So this is our first promise file, and here if we see, our first line is printing this line, first line, and then after that we have created a promise object. Inside this promise object we are passing resolve and reject. So this is the syntax of promise. Whenever we are creating any new promise object, then in the inline function we will pass resolve and reject, and this resolve will be triggered if our functions inline, if our asynchronous operation is done successfully, then we will trigger the resolve, and resolve will return the data of that asynchronous operation. And if any error is happening in the asynchronous operation, then we will call the reject, and in that reject we will pass the error message or complete error. So here inside this promise we have we are calling one asynchronous functions of Node.js, that is the set timeout, and in this set timeout we are resolving this string. So once this set timeout is executed successfully, then it will return this data, it will return this string, and this set timeout will be completed after 500 milliseconds. So here we have created the promise, and as soon as we are creating the promise, it will start the execution of its an inline function in asynchronous way. Our control will not wait here. So here at the line number 10 we have written that promise means this object, this promise object. So promise dot then, and here we are taking the result, and then we are handling this result, so we are printing it. And if any error is happening, then control will come under the catch block, and here we are handling the error message. So here in this asynchronous operation, if we are calling the resolve, then in that case, once promise is done, once send timeout is done, then control will come here at the line number 11, and this result will be this data that we are resolving. That means whatever the data we are returning here, that will come under the results attribute. But if we are calling a reject, then control will come under the catch block, and it will print this error. Now let's see. So right now we are resolving it. So first let's run it. So it has run it, and if we see, it has first printed the first line, that means here, and then it has come here, and it has started the execution of this one, and then it didn't wait here, and it came to the end, and it printed this line. And by that time, once this 500 millisecond is over, then it has resolved this data, and then control came here, and it has printed this result of promise. That means this result of promise, and this is the result, whatever we are returning from here, that is coming here. that is being printed here. Now what about if instead of resolve, if we are calling reject, then what will happen? So suppose here I am commenting this line and I am opening this one. Now let's save it. So here we are calling the reject. So as we discussed that if we are calling the reject, control should come under the catch block. Now let's see whether it is happening or not. So again, if we see first line it has printed, second line it has printed, and then here we have triggered the reject, then it should come into the catch block, and here it has printed the error, and error has happened. So that's how we can handle the error in case of promises also. Now let's come to the second point. So second point is what is the different states of the promises. So there are three different states of promise. The first one is pending, then fulfilled, and then rejected. Pending state is the initial states and it is neither fulfilled nor rejected. Now fulfilled means it has completed and it is resolved successfully. There is no error in the asynchronous operation, and rejected means there has some error occurred and it has rejected. The eventual states of pending promises can either be fulfilled with a value or rejected with a reason or error. When either of these options occurs, the associated handler queued up by the promises then method is called, either then or catch. If the promise has already been fulfilled or rejected when a corresponding handler is attached, then the handler will be called. That means if whether it is fulfilled or whether it is rejected, then whatever handler we are attaching through then or through catch, it will be called. Okay, so this is how promises works and different states of the promises. So this we can see if we run it in debug mode, we can see it better. So for example, I am currently resolving it. Let me comment Control S, and then I am putting some debug point. One debug point is here, another is here, and then here. Okay, now let's now I am running it. Node first promise. So here my control has first come here, it has printed this first line, and now control has stopped here. And if we are moving to the next line, then it has created this promise object. Now let's see what is its state. So its state is in pending mode. Okay, and once this 500 millisecond is completed, then it will resolve this and state will come under the fulfilled state. So here control has come and now the promise is fulfilled. So these are the states, three states of the promises. Now let's move on to the third point. Third point is promise chain. So a promise chain in Node.js is a series of asynchronous operations or promises that are executed in sequential or organized manner. Each operation depends on the result of the previous one, making it easier to manage the asynchronous code and handle the flow of the data. Promise chaining make it easy to structure and manage the asynchronous code. It ensures that each step in the sequence depends on the successful completion of the previous one, and if any step in the promise chain gives an error, then the control will go to the catch block and then it will stop running the further steps in the chain and it will handle the error. This improves the code readability and maintainability in the Node application. Now let's understand this with the help of an example. So here, okay, so I have already created one promise chain function. This is the promise chain, and if we see here, my first function is the fetch user ID. Here I am returning one promise. In this promise I have called set timeout, and this set timeout is waiting for 200 millisecond, and here it is returning one user ID, this hard-coded user ID it is returning. Now this is my second promise. Second promise is the fetch user detail. Here I am passing the user ID, and again here I am returning the new promise, and under this promise I have called the set timeout, and again it is also waiting for 200 millisecond, and then it is returning one object, and this object is having ID and name field. Now the third is the display username, and whatever the user detail is being returned by the second function, it is just printing the name from that object. Now what we have done, that we have chained all these three functions. Okay, because why we have changed? Because our first function fetch user id is giving the user id, then fetch user detail, we are calling this fetch user detail is accepting whatever data is being returned by the fetch user id, and then it is returning the user detail. Now whatever the user detail it is returning, this user detail is being accepted by this function, that is the display username, and this user detail, from this user detail it is returning the name function. And then at last we have used dot catch block, that if any error is coming in any of these three functions, then control will directly come to the catch block. So suppose if here error is coming in the second function, then it will not execute the third function, it will directly come under the catch block. Now let's execute it. So here if we execute, then the last function that we had called is the display username, and it is printing this data. Okay, so this is how it is printing. Now what if any error is coming in the second function? For example, in this function some error is coming, so instead of resolving, suppose I am calling reject, then what will happen? Then in this case control will not come under this one, display username, and control will directly go into the catch block. Now let's see. So see here, the control has directly come to the catch block, that is here. So here if we see, error has happened in this function, and once error has happened here, then it didn't executed this function, it directly come under the catch block. So this is how the promise chain works. Now let us move to the fourth point. So what is the how the error being handled under the promises? So error handling in the promises in Node.js is crucial for gracefully managing and responding to the error that occurs during the asynchronous operation. It ensures that your application doesn't crash due to unhandled exceptions. It ensures the robustness and reliability of your Node.js application. It allows you to respond to the error in controlled manner to provide a better user experience. We should provide the meaningful error messages to add in debugging and troubleshooting. We should consider the logging errors rather than just printing them to the console for better error tracking. In promises, error handling is typically done by using the catch block method, that catch method, which allows you to catch and handle any error that occurs during the execution of your asynchronous operations within the promise. So here while going through the code, I have already shown that how we are handling the error. So this is all about the error handling in the promises. Now let's move on to my fifth point, that is the different functions of promises. So here we are going to discuss about the four different functions of promises that are very useful and that are highly used in our real-time coding. So these are Promise.all, Promise.all.settled, Promise.any, and Promise.race. Now let's discuss first about the Promise.all. So Promise.all is a static method that takes an array of promises. Suppose you are having an array where you are having, in that array you are having 3-4 promises. So it takes that array as an input and returns a single promise. This return promise fulfills when all of the input promises fulfilled. When all of the input promises are successfully completed, then only this final promise is fulfilled. And what it returns as a result, it returns the array of data being returned by all the promises, and it rejects when any one of the input promises rejects, then it rejects the whole promise, and it didn't wait for any other promises to execute. So now let's see how it is working in terms of the code. Let's understand this through the code. So here is the Promise.all function, and if we see here, first I have created promise1. In this promise1 I am calling promise.resolve, and here I am passing just one number 1 to 3. Second is the promise2. Here I have created one promise object, new promise. In this I am passing resolve reject, and I have called a set timeout, and in this set timeout I am giving 100 millisecond, and once 100 millisecond is over, then I am calling resolve, and resolve means it will return this string. That is the quick. And in the third promise, similarly I have created one promise, and under this promise I am calling set timeout, and from set timeout this is waiting for 200 millisecond, and after 200 millisecond it is calling resolve, and in this resolve we are returning slow. So if we see, if we run all the three all together in parallel, then definitely this is going to be completed first because it is not waiting. Second one is waiting for just 100 millisecond, then second it will be completed, and third is waiting for 200 milliseconds. So this is the last promise that is going to be completed. Now how we will run it? So first we are creating here one array. This name we can give anything, it is just a variable name, and here we have created one array. In this array we have passed all the three promises, okay? And then this is the Node.js method, not especially Node.js method, it is provided by the JavaScript. So we can use Promise.all, and under all we are passing this array, promises array, and then we are calling dot then, and this then method is having the value. What is this value? Value is basically the array, and this array is having the data from all the three promises. That means first whatever is first getting, means if I am passing my first promise is this promise one, then in this array the array result will have the data of promise 1 at the 0th value, data of promise 2 at the 1th, and data of promise 3 in the third position. And if any error is happening in any of the promises, then it will not wait for completion of all the three promises, it will directly come to the catch block. Now let's run it. So see, here I triggered Promise.all, and then all the promises got successfully completed, and as I told, it is going to be first completed, and this is at the first position in this array. That is why its value is coming at the first, and then quick, that means this, and then this is the third one. Now if we are changing its position, suppose Control X, I am changing the position. Promise 2 I am putting at the last, Control V. So although promise 2 is going to be completed before promise 1, but its value will come at the third position, because in this array we are passing at the third position. So this is very important to understand here. So see here, now it is 1 to 3, then slow, and then quick. Although this quick is being completed before slow, but it is coming at the third position because this promise we are passing at the third position. That is why its value is also coming at the third position in this array. Now what about if any error is coming under the promise 2? This is the promise 2, and here instead of resolve, suppose I am calling reject. Suppose I have called the reject, then what will happen? Then it will first execute this is completed, and then when this is being executed, that time error is happening, then control will not wait for the completion of this. Control will come directly here, and it will keep running in the background, but control will not wait for its completion. So if we see here, so see, error is quick. So this is the error, control is coming under this block, and whatever we are rejecting here, we are rejecting with the message this, then this is getting printed here. So here it is not waiting, it is not bothering that whether the first promise is getting completed or third promise is getting completed. It is not waiting for that, it is just filling in the second promises, and it is coming under the error block. So this is how the Promise.all works. Now let's move on to Promise.allSettled. So Promise.allSettled is a static method that takes an array of the promises as input and returns a single promises, same as the Promise.any. This returned promises fulfills when all the input promises settled. Okay, so it doesn't matter that whether any promises is failing or not. It will wait till the completion of all the promises, and once all the promises are completed, then it will come under the then method, under the then clause, and with the result of all the promises. And if any promises is fulfilled, then it will come with the keyword fulfilled. If it is not fulfilled, then it will come as a failed. Now let's see it with an example. So this is promise.all settled. Here if we see under the promise one, I am calling reject, so this will be rejected. And then promise 2 is resolving after 100 millisecond, promise 3 is resolving after 200 millisecond, and once they are resolving, they are returning the messages same as earlier, quick and slow, and first one is rejecting. So here same, we have created one array. Under this array we have passed all the promises, and then we have called promise.all settled, and we are passing this promise array here. And once so even if control is failing here, our promise.all settled will wait till the completion of all the three promises, and once all the three promises are completed, then only control will come under this then clause, and then it will print whatever the values are coming from all the three promises. Now let's see. So if we see here, this is the return data, and this is what we are printing here. And the first one promise is getting rejected, so its status is rejected, and next two promises are succeeded, so its status is fulfilled. And the first promise is rejected, then what is the reason? So this is the message that we are passing while rejecting, so this is coming under the reason. And these two promises are fulfilled or succeeded, then these values are coming under the value attribute. So this is how we can identify that which one or which all promises are rejected and which all are fulfilled. So that's how we can write our code. So this is all about the promise.all settled. Now what is the next one? Next one is the promise.any. So Promise.any is also a static method, and it also takes the array of the promises as an input and returns as a single promise. The return promise fulfills when any of the input promises fulfill with this first fulfillment value, okay, and it rejects when all of the input promises reject it. So here the point to understand that in promise.any, if we are passing three promises, and if any one of the promises is fulfilled, is succeeded, then immediately control will come under the then clause. It will not wait for the completion of the other promises. But if any promise is failing, then in that case it will not immediately come under the catch block. It will wait till the completion of other promises, and then only it will come under the catch block. So this is what the promise.any is. Now let's see it through the code. So this is the promise.any, and here under promise 1 we are passing the simple string. Under promise 2, again it is the simple 400 millisecond. Once set timeout is being triggered, and it will wait for 100 millisecond. Once it is completed, then it will call the result with quick method, and set timeout with 500 millisecond, and then it will call slow. So this is how. And here same, we have created the array. Under array we have passed all the three promises, then we have called promise.any. Under this we have passed all the three array of these three promises, and then we have created the then and catch method. So here none of the promises are failing, all are passing. So here control will come under the then clause, and it will print the value. Now let's see how it is showing. So here as I had mentioned that as soon as any one of the promises is succeeded, control will immediately come under the then clause, and it will print that data. It will not wait for the completion of these two promises. That doesn't mean it is not running these two promises. These two promises are running in the background, but it is not taking care of what data these two promises are returning. It has got data from the one promise at the first, and it is printing that data. But if any error is coming, then that doesn't mean that control will immediately come under the catch block. It will wait till the completion of all the promises, and then only it will come. So suppose if here instead of this I am calling for example, if I am commenting this one and opening this one. Okay, now let's save it. So see here again, the first promise is failing, but it is not taken care of. As soon as second promise has passed, it has come under the then clause and it has printed its data. So if out of 3 or 5 promises, if one promise is failing but any other promise is passing, it will consider that promise, it will not consider that failed promise. So this is how the Promise.any works. So it will consider the error method only when all the promises are rejecting. For example, my first promise is rejecting, here also suppose it is also rejecting, and then third also is rejecting. So in this case, as soon as first is rejecting, then this Promise.any will see, okay, my second promise is rejecting or not. So second is also rejecting, then it will see, okay, third is rejecting or not. So third is also rejecting. So when all the promises are rejecting, then control will come under the catch block and it will print the error. Now let's see, and that error will be the array of errors. Okay, I forgot to save it. Now I've saved it, and now let's see it. So see here, it has printed the array in this format, aggregator all the promises were rejected. So this is how it will work, Promise.any. So now here the fourth point is Promise.race. So Promise.race is also a static method that takes similarly promises array as input and returns one single promises. The single promises settles with the eventual state of the first promises that settles. The Promise.race method is one of the promise concurrency method. It's useful when you want the first async task to complete but do not care about its eventual state, that whether it is succeeded or failed. You are just caring that out of 3 promises, which one is first completed, whether it is succeeded or failed. I am taking care of it, I am not taking care of other promises. In this case, in these scenarios, Promise.race is useful. Example again, so this is the Promise.race, and here if we see promise 1 is waiting for 500 millisecond, then it is printing slower. Promise 2 is waiting for 100 millisecond, then it is printing faster. And promise 3 is not waiting, it is not waiting for any millisecond, and it is just rejecting it. So as we just understood that in Promise.race, it will just take care of its promises that is getting fulfilled first, whether it is failing or whether it is passed. So if we see here, the first will be succeeded, will be this promises, although it is failing, but it will be completed first, and thus as it is failing, so control will come under the catch block and it will print error happened, and here error it will print. For example, let's see, let me clean the terminal, then node. Okay, so see here, it has printed error happened. And if we make it resolve, Control S, and then if we print, then it will print as a resolved value. Control will come under the then clause. So see, resolved value, and control has printed this value. Okay, so this is how the Promise.race works. Now let's see what is the difference between Promise.all, Promise.all.settled, and Promise.any and Promise.race in terms of when it is returning the data on, or when it is returning the error. So in case of Promise.all, it returns data when all the promises are completed successfully. So suppose if we have passed 3 promises, then when all the 3 promises are succeeded completely, then only it will return the data from all the promises in one array. But in case of error, as soon as any one of the promises will fail, it will return the error message and it will come under the catch block. Promise.all settled. So either error is happening or error is not happening, it will wait till the completion of all the promises, and once all the promises are completed, then only it will return the error. Otherwise it will not return the error. Means it will return the data, and in that data then we will have to identify whether it is fulfilled or whether it is rejected, and then accordingly we will have to handle. Now the third one is Promise.any. So when Promise.any is returning data, so as soon as any one of the promises is completed successfully, so suppose here if we have passed 3 promises, and out of the 3 promises suppose second promise got succeeded first, then it will return the data from the second promises, and it will not wait for the completion of other 2 promises, although those 2 promises are running in the background, but it will return the data before their completion. And when it will return the error message, so suppose if we have passed 3 promises and if all the 3 promises are failed, then only it will return the error message. So it will wait till the completion, till the failure of all the 3, and if all the 3 are failing, then only it will return the error message. Or suppose if first one has failed but second has passed, then it will return the data of the second under the then clause. Control will not go to the catch block. Now how the Promise.race is working. So in Promise.race, if your out of 3 promises, if any one promises is getting succeeded first, it will just return that promise data under the then clause. It will not wait for the completion of other 2 promises. And same is the case in case of error. If your any one promises is returning error and that is getting completed first, it will return the error and control will come into the catch block. So this is how the promises, different states of promises, different functions of promises work. So thus today we have discussed about what is the promise in Node.js, different states of the promises, promise chain, error handling in promises, different functions of the promises like Promise.all, Promise.all.settled, Promise.race, Promise.any, and difference between these 2 promises when they are returning the data, when they are returning the errors, and how we are performing the error handling in promises. So all these things we have discussed today, and it's a humble request to my viewer to please practice these by doing some coding at your home, and then you will get more detail about these topics. So this is all that I was having today to share with my viewers regarding the promises. And if you are new to my channel, then please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated with the latest Node.js tutorial. And if you have any question or need any help, then feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Happy coding.